Welcome to Epilogue Podcast, the show where we discuss some stuff that happened on a different show ages ago which nobody really cares about anymore.
Hi, I'm Portponky.
And I'm LeBloc.
Today we're discussing Deep Space Nine, Season 6, Episode 14, One Little Ship. The Defiant is captured by the Jem'Hadar and must be saved by a miniature, tiny little cute runabout.
It's so cute.
Yes, because a smaller version of anything big is cute. But it was kind of cute, yeah.
That first part of your summary makes this episode sound really scary and harrowing. The Jem'Hadar take over the Defiant. And that would be, but it's not really because of this tiny ship flying around. It had me laughing the whole time, which is fine. I was entertained, but it's funny how they mixed that element with Jem'Hadar taking over, which is a serious threat.
I think this is supposed to be a comedy episode. I'm not really sure, though.
I'm not sure either. I was trying to figure that out the whole time. And then I eventually concluded that I don't care because I liked it so much.
Well, yeah, that's true. I think it was a comedy, but they put the Jem'Hadar in, and that made it less comedic because they're kind of crazy, murdering psychopaths. But if they'd done something else, like the Ferengi had taken over their ship or something, I could imagine this being kind of bad.
It all works. It fits together, even though it kind of shouldn't.
There's one plot aspect I didn't like.
Which is?
Can you guess?
That O'Brien doesn't know every bit of circuitry like the back of his hand.
No, that's fine.
Dax was useful.
That's good. No, it's the alphas and gammas.
Oh, okay. Every time they talked about that, my eyes glazed over and I didn't care. So I kind of forgot that it was in this episode.
It is kind of forgettable, isn't it?
Well, they don't really go anywhere with it. It's there to introduce more tension, but I didn't care.
They've done this sort of thing a few times with the Jem'Hadar, where the first is all angry and then the third or seventh or 28th or whatever has some bone to pick and they just bicker and it makes them ineffective. It starts to seem like the Jem'Hadar are kind of useless. Give Sisko 2 minutes with one and he'll have them fighting within themselves.
They haven't done a very good job of breeding these things to have leadership qualities.
Well, they harp on about obedience, but they're not very good at it.
They're really good at talking about it and mentioning it.
Yeah, even when it's really not appropriate. Like at the end, when Sisko's beat them all, and the dying guy says, "No, obedience brings victory." And Sisko didn't take the time to say, "No, well, if you were disobedient, you would have won. You idiot."
I can see why that whole thing annoyed you, but it was minor enough where I was able to ignore it.
Yeah, the Jem'Hadar goofiness wasn't a big deal. It was a minor aspect of the episode. It seems like Starfleet do human testing on random Starfleet officers.
Apparently,
They don't have test pilots or anything like that.
they sent one probe and that was enough.
More than one. I think Dax said all the probes, or
Oh, okay. Still,
probes plural.
they sent probes and then jumped to humans.
Yeah, they didn't send a horse in or anything. A giraffe.
Space Horse.
Yeah. Send a box of voles in, see what happens.
And they send 3 vital people, 3 vital crew members.
Yeah, don't worry, it's only someone with 8 lifetimes of experience, probably the most intelligent doctor in the entire Federation, and one engineer that keeps Deep Space Nine running. They didn't just pick one as well, they sent all 3 at once.
That bit bothered me until the episode got underway and I was enjoying myself.
Why did they even send Bashir? He didn't do anything useful apart from encourage O'Brien a little bit.
That part's confusing. He's a doctor. Why? Maybe to talk them out of hysteria because they're being shrunken down and they don't know how to handle it mentally. I don't know.
Well, if that's the case, they shouldn't have sent the first 2 people. Oh, you're mentally unprepared for this. I know, we'll send along a counselor with you. So as it all horribly goes wrong, they can help you to calm down.
No, really, it's okay that you're this small. Trust me, we'll work through this as you grow smaller.
It was a little silly that Kira was laughing so much about it.
Oh, that was weird.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what they're trying to do. It's a ridiculous plot device, so if they ridicule it themselves, that sort of breaks the ice a little. But it wasn't that funny.
I could see her being amused, but not being reduced to hysterical laughter.
It would have been good if when the Rubicon turned up at the end and was waving to them, if she had just been in fits of laughter. Because sometimes people just find certain things really funny for no apparent reason, even when no one else is laughing. If you get the right sort of thing, it can really tickle someone. But no, of course, at the end, she doesn't really care.
She learned to love miniature things in the course of the episode.
Is this because Nog saved them?
Maybe.
You're making fun of his height.
I wasn't, but now I wish I were.
I know you weren't. I'm just trying to corner you for no reason. Actually, Nog didn't help. It was... Well, he helped, but it was Bashir and O'Brien on that circuit board.
In Nog's mind, he was the hero, at least until he found out what really happened.
Yes, that must have been a disappointing conversation. Guys,
hey guys, did you hear how I saved everyone?
I saved everyone. Oh, how did you do that?
Oh, about that.
Well, the encryption. Yeah, no. Yeah, that was us. We did that. What else did you do? What did you think of the circuit board stage set sort of thing?
I loved it. It was so fresh and new. We so often see the same things, the cave set. And here we get something new, but also because it's focused on this tiny runabout flying around the Defiant, we get these interesting angles and looks at stuff we've seen over and over, and it feels fresh. I loved the inventive camera angles and all that.
It certainly has a unique feel. You get to see all sorts of stuff you don't usually see, like people's trousers.
And shoes.
Yeah, well, that sounds silly, but honestly, a lot of this show is shot from the waist up. But they were getting down low, going under tables and stuff. And the camera was too, I mean. And going up to the ceilings as well. Which they don't. I mean, I guess the sets don't usually have ceilings, so they probably put a bunch of work in to get that looking right. But it's nice. It's really nice to see.
It is. It's interesting. There would be no reason for them to have a close-up shot of a corner of a room other than something like this. But I like seeing it where they're hovering around pipes or being under a table. It's different.
So if this was just an episode about an amazing game of hide and seek they had on the Defiant, then it would have been just as good.
No.
Oh, okay. I felt the circuit board set was very retro, because it did not look like tiny guys on a circuit board.
Not at all.
It was so unconvincing, but it was still awesome. I loved it. It's a really different environment for them to explore. I would say that special effects aren't that big a deal. It doesn't matter if they're not very good. And I think this is a good example because, well, it was a nice set. It's just totally unconvincing. But it still was really fun to see them wandering around the circuit board.
One thing I really liked about this episode was that the two separate teams were on separate missions, but within the same space, and their actions could influence what was happening with the other team. It's an interesting thing that not a lot of gimmicks would allow for that to happen. If it were just the tiny spaceship flying around somewhere else, I don't think I would have liked it as much. I loved seeing them flying around within the Defiant and seeing these Jem'Hadar and the crew. That enhanced the episode for me.
Yeah, the A plot and the B plot were closely intertwined. Sometimes there's a little mixing, but this was two views on the same plot, which is kind of cool.
Usually plots are so separate and distinct, or they'll fall under the same theme or something like that. But these were so mingled, and I like that.
It would have been nice if there was some help from Team Cisco to Team Dex rather than it just being one way.
Yeah, if they opened a hatch or something.
If they'd stripped out the Alphas versus Gammas plotline, they could have fit something like that in. That might have been kind of nice. The tiny ship flying around shooting photon torpedoes or whatever at the Jem'Hadar's faces was the best.
That made me laugh a lot.
They're shooting tiny little photon torpedoes blowing up in the guys' faces.
Lots of kickback from those projectiles.
Well, why not? Like a tiny stick of dynamite would still hurt if it was thrown in your face.
I'm not saying it's bad. It's really funny to see this tiny ship knocking this guy off a ledge.
It makes me wonder why they don't have little defense drones like that kind of size.
They should find a race of people that are that size naturally, so they wouldn't have to do any shrinking, and then build runabouts for them, and then they patrol the Defiant.
Okay. So they've got borrowers doing their security.
Hey, it worked out here.
It did actually work really well. Well, they don't need to find tiny guys. They can just shrink regular guys now. They've got this space anomaly that's just down the road from Deep Space Nine. No doubt they'll use it for all sorts of interesting size-related things.
Instead of never mentioning it ever again.
Hey, wait, hang on. If it can make things bigger... So they went through it and came out smaller, and then they did the reverse and came out bigger. Does that mean they can do the reverse again and be even bigger?
Well, did it make them bigger, or did it make them return to normal?
It made them bigger.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing it's like orbital mechanics where you can come in at a certain speed, and depending how you adjust your orbit, you can leave at a much greater or lower speed.
That seems like a good analogy.
Instead of speed, it's size. So presumably they could send a a nuke in and get a much bigger nuke. Do that a couple of times until they have a massive nuke the size of a small moon. Just chuck it towards the Dominion.
I'm a little worried your first idea was a nuke.
Well, what else would you want to make huge? I was thinking of the war effort here.
Oh, I was thinking like a bar of chocolate, and then you can make it huge and have more of your favorite bar of chocolate.
But it doesn't actually make it more, it just makes it larger. I don't know if you'd be able to digest it properly.
That's a great way to go out.
Dying, but because you tried to eat a bar of chocolate that had been expanded by a subspace anomaly.
Yeah, that would be one unique obituary.
Yeah, no one would predict that. At your funeral, they would say, "I never thought he would die this way."
Out of all the ways I imagined him dying, this was not one of them. That reminds me of the conversation in this episode about the air molecules and how they wouldn't be able to breathe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's what I was basing the chocolate thing on.
I don't know how realistic that is, but it sounded it sounded right, and I like that kind of talk. This is a sci-fi show, after all.
Well, within the context of what they've done, it seemed reasonable. I mean, obviously, it is completely unrealistic, but assuming there was something that could alter the property of atoms such that things shrunk but still behaved the same, then yeah, you probably couldn't breathe regular air.
And then Dax comes up with a science solution. Good job.
It wasn't really a science solution, though.
Well, a solution. She was helpful.
It actually makes sense, and you can follow it. A science solution is more like, oh, we'll move a tachyon pulse right through the beam, and that'll make us a transverse idiot field. We'll be done. That's a science solution. Exciting. Yeah, that's the Technobabble style solution. So this was more, well, you can go in there because we can put the small air in there, but there's not very much small air. I don't know why she didn't just beam a bit more over.
To keep it interesting.
Okay. Because the odds were not stacked enough.
No, she's really impatient, so she didn't let on that she could send more, and she just wanted them to hurry up.
I like that O'Brien used a phaser to seal the plug.
Nice touch.
What I would have liked more is if they'd got the circuit out at the end when they were big again and said, "Oh, look at that." That's maybe a bit needless.
Would you demand 1-to-1 representation with what we saw when they were tiny and then the circuit board?
No.
Okay.
There's no convincing me that that was a small thing made big. They were using ventilation ducts instead of pipe. Sorry, ventilation pipes instead of wires. It was really
special
obvious.
Wires.
They didn't behave anything like small objects.
But you've never been a centimeter tall. What do you know?
No, but I have dealt with things that are a centimeter tall. They don't behave the same way. Maybe I'm wrong, but that was clearly ventilation ducting. Kira is standing right in front of the Jem'Hadar, and she says, "At least we're going to take them with us." And the Jem'Hadar doesn't react at all.
He doesn't know what that means. He's thinking, oh, to the beach? Where are we going?
Oh, at least we're going to take them with us to the internment camp where they'll drop us off as prisoners of war. As if she's formed a really close bond with them.
After instructing him on how to do the repairs, they formed a bond, and he's assuming that it will continue.
Yeah, it would make no sense to change crew now. I'm glad that Worf didn't write a poem.
I'm glad too. But why are you glad?
I'm certainly no expert on poetry, but even I could tell that some of the fictional poems they've had on Star Trek are not of high quality. So I'm glad they didn't do another one.
They avoided that trap and made it a joke.
Yes, it looked like it was going to be cringeworthy, but then it turned out quite lighthearted and funny.
The reveal of nothing on the pad was really funny. It was good enough where the poem was extremely bad, but then to know that he had nothing and made it up on the spot made it even better.
Yeah, it was like a kid's book.
One quick scene that I enjoyed a lot was when they burst through the hatch, because we see it from our normal perspective and it looks uneventful. They just go through it and you think whatever. And that's really funny to me because it would look like that from our perspective, but then when they're in the tiny runabout, I'm sure it was scary and it wasn't certain that they would survive this crash, but then it looks so simple from the bigger perspective.
Yeah, it looks like the plasma is going to destroy the whole ship once they take the panel off.
Yeah.
Have that leaking into the ship, you'll kill everyone. And then they just burst through it, does a little fiery poop, and then it closes again.
It's really funny.
Do you have a little quote from this little episode?
Our loyalty is demonstrated by our actions, not our words.
He says with words.
But he acted out the words in a play.
In mime?
Yes. They cut that part. He mimed out loyalty.
That's a good quote to pick because there was a lot of overly wordy stuff about loyalty and the alphas and gammas and stuff. And they should just do it with actions.
Is that simply because you don't want to hear anything about the alphas and gammas?
Yep. I'm sure I cared about it even less than you did.
The only redeeming thing for that little plot thread for me was that they looked kind of different. They had different facial features.
I thought it was just the first and the second.
Oh, is that what it is?
I don't even know. I thought maybe the alphas looked slightly bluer, but then I couldn't tell any of the other ones apart. So I thought maybe it's just the other guy, the second, was older. I don't know. It's an undeveloped plotline that got way too much screen time for how much we're expected to care about it. I don't think they should have developed the Jem'Hadar in this way. They're mindless killing machines. They're tools of war. We don't need to humanize them by having factions and feelings. And the fact that it completely doesn't work shows this. Well, I'm sure we'll be hearing more about alphas and gammas very soon.
Like where?
They'll probably get more info about it from the 3D holotransmitter.
No!
We may also get the next episode,
Which will be all about Jem'Hadar factions.
Yeah, they're going to fill up the entire Greek alphabet. It had nothing to do with quadrants. They're just big fans of the Greek alphabet. Well, we should get onto that. Let's do it.
Okay.